Hi everyone. I'm going to have a pretty short video to discuss cigarettes. The reason it's going to be short is because we're just going to follow up to a number of the things that we were learning from naps and trains. Pardon me. Primarily understanding how to develop a problem-making section, but then particularly doing it through different types of claims and different types of modes of discourse. And then we also had the rhetorical approach as well. Now, this essay might be getting ahead of ourselves a little bit because as we're going to discuss, cigarettes doesn't really have a problem-making section, unlike the first two essays that have 2.5-page problem-making sections. And so I'm having you read this before you do your problem-making draft, just to talk about rhetorical control and rhetorical understanding and why Barbara Holland doesn't need a problem-making section in this essay, and also so that we can continue to practice claims and modes of discourse. But for the most part, I'm assuming that almost all of you will have topics and rhetorical situations that can be developed with fully fleshed out problem-making sections. And I almost expect it. If you feel like you could take a cigarettes type approach to your in-defensive essay because your problem and your topic warrant it, then you would talk with me in conferences or in office hours or by email what that might look like for you so I can affirm or deny your ability to do so. So let's keep this fairly brief, but we are going to add one more maybe lesson to what we've practiced already, and that is going to be choosing examples that really appeal to your audience's emotion and or logic. So first things first, I'm going to get out of video and um, go back to finding your rhetorical approach for the in-defensive essay. And we're just going to talk about what it is in cigarettes really quickly, and then we're going to move to the cigarettes essay. So I added a new rhetorical approach. In general, this rhetorical approach says, let me underline these, you don't understand this topic because of how you feel about it, which is a kind of problem, but it is important that you understand this. More specifically, you audience don't understand why we used to smoke cigarettes because of how you feel about it or what you understand about cigarettes now, but it is important that you understand the legitimate reasons we used to smoke cigarettes. That's her rhetorical approach to the problem and audience that she is addressing and the argument that she's trying to make about cigarettes. And we're going to dig into that as we go. Let's see. So I'm going to pull up the cigarettes essay and we're going to work through it and just make as many observations as we can related to the skills we've practiced so far and the new one that I want to touch on. So here we have cigarettes. I've already mentioned that there is no problem-making section here. Well, there is a problem-making section, but it's pretty short. We'll see at the very beginning of the first paragraph when she says, well, it's time somebody explained, that she is making a statement of purpose. She is establishing her purpose for the essay. I'm going to explain why we used to smoke cigarettes. And then pretty much right away in this paragraph and then every paragraph following, she gives the reasons about why they used to smoke cigarettes. And she does it through a series of claims. Most notably in this essay, they are definition claims and they are causal claims. But a series of claims, one paragraph after another, that are her reasons about why people, her included, used to smoke. But seeing this statement of purpose and then argument that begins here, we only see this brief little introductory problem-making section. So I'm going to read it, and then we're going to talk about why she actually doesn't have a problem-making section here, Because as you know, I'm telling you to write a fully developed 2-page problem-making section. So why doesn't Barbara Holland do it? Again, it all comes down to every different writing situation, every different topic will have a different approach and will be made up of different elements of writing. And it is our job to understand what is going to be most effective for our audience. So let's read the first paragraph. Now that we've all been told half to death of the medical horrors lying in wait for smokers, those who are never lured into the filthy habit gaze in slack-jawed amazement at those who were. How could we possibly have done such a disgusting and dangerous thing? Whatever possessed us, and not just once, mind you, but over and over for years, decades, in heaven's name, why? Well, it's time somebody explained. No, we weren't attempting suicide or deliberately trying to stunt our unborn children or poison the bystanders. We did it because it was fun. I'm going to end there because she starts getting into the argument right away. So we have a brief problem-making section here. And the problem is all the problems related to cigarettes, that they caused lung cancer, that they caused birth defects, that they had secondhand smoke problems, that they were dirty, that they were dangerous and disgusting. She's getting into some of the audience's beliefs about feelings towards and legitimate factual understanding about cigarettes, but she just does it very briefly before then she moves on to make her argument. And it's interesting to note why she does this. The simplest answer is her audience knows the depth of the problem already. So that's one reason that she doesn't need to fully develop the problem-making section. She doesn't need to convince them. Like I've said to you in the last videos, the purpose of a problem-making section is to convince the audience that there's a problem that needs to be solved. So then that your solution is a nice remedy to that problem. Here, though, her audience doesn't need to be convinced that there was a problem. They know the problem already. Why do they know it? Well, they know it because they've seen so many TV ads. They've been affected personally in relationships by others who had smoked and had illness because of it, or all these side effects because of it. And so they already know the depths of the problem. So because of that, she doesn't need to explain something to them that they already know. It's just a good bit of advice to take into all writing. You don't make an argument and you don't tell your audience in depth something that they already know. It would be a waste of time. Another reason she doesn't fully develop a problem-making section here is because if she went on and on and on about the problem with smoking, it would make it harder for her to then turn around and make an argument that explained why people used to do it. The more you use language like disgusting and dangerous and unborn and suicide and poison, that those diction choices that really establish the tone, the more you use those, the more the audience is going to be overwhelmed by them. And then in this case, the least likely they are going to want to listen to the explanation of why cigarettes were once smoked. Again, if you have a topic that you think could fit this kind of formula, your audience knows the problem well, they know it in depth, and going in depth wouldn't actually benefit your argument, you would have to talk to me to see if that's a rhetorical approach you can take. I'm still assuming that most of you will have longer 2-page problem-making sections. So this discussion of Barbara Holland's problem-making section here was really just to help you understand rhetorical control and rhetorical awareness, and not arguing something that your audience already knows, or not arguing something that will lead to your audience having even more objections to your argument in the long run. Because if you do that, then you've lost them and they're uninterested in your argument. So that is our problem-making explanation of why it's absent here. Now, really what I want to look at this essay for is to look briefly at types of claims and modes of discourse, just to keep practicing that. But really, I want to focus on the types of examples that Barbara Holland chooses. Because we have this idea here that she's trying to get them to understand something that they think is problematic, that they have a problem with. And she needs to convince them that there were legitimate reasons people once smoked. Because her audience could come in saying, I don't care what you say, no matter what you say, I won't have sympathy for why you used to smoke. I won't understand or have empathy for the fact that you used to. You did something bad and it's your fault. Her audience could have that objection. So she needs to come in and find the best way, choose the best examples to move them emotionally to a place where they will at least listen to her and maybe even start to be convinced of the reasons people used to smoke. And so we're talking now about making an argument that specifically appeals to your audience's ability to respond emotionally. So let's look first at the types of claims and modes of discourse, and then look at just a couple places where her specific choice of examples has quite a powerful effect on her audience. So first, we can start from the beginning. Really, in the middle of the second paragraph, she starts her claims with, "We did it because it was fun. It felt good. It felt like scratching an itch, or stretching, or biting a grain of caviar, or having your back rubbed, or taking off tight shoes." So this claim, this first claim, let me explain to you, why did we do it? Here's her first answer. We did it because it was fun and it felt good. That is a causal claim. Something was the result of something else. Fun or a good feeling was the result of smoking. So we have this causal claim here, and she starts with it. And then immediately she turns to example. In this case, it's example in the form of metaphor. It felt good like scratching an itch, stretching, biting a grain of caviar, having your back rubbed, taking off tight shoes. So, causal claim and example mode of discourse. She then moves on to another short little paragraph. She says, cigarettes tasted good. Their flavor mixed happily with other tastes, apples, cold beer, after dinner coffee. Now, this is a definition claim. It's defining what cigarettes are or were, and they were something that had good taste or that tasted good. So here we have a definition claim, and then again examples about situations in which they tasted especially good. So their flavor mixed happily with apples, cold beer, after dinner coffee. These first two claims she makes, the causal and then the definition, are very simple. They almost even seem like childish kind of reasoning. Why'd you do that? Well, because it was fun. Why'd you do that? Well, because it tasted good. Not very sophisticated, very basic, and she supports them with a couple very quick examples. Now, after these two, she gets into these longer paragraphs that develop the claim more thoroughly. She has the claim they were sexy, and that is a definition claim. She has one cigarette was worth 1,000 words. That is it's kind of a combo of a definition and a causal claim. If you had one cigarette, the result would be deep communication. So it's really a causal claim. Men, notoriously shy of personal conversation, relied heavily on them. Also a causal claim. The tobacco offer was a gesture of peace. Definition claim. It was a gesture of peace. The cigarette relieved tension. That is going to be also a causal claim. It gave us a chance to think. Causal claim. I can keep going, but as you see already, there are definition claims. Cigarettes were a social crutch. And then there are causal claims. And that's pretty much what the whole essay is made up of, these two different types of claims. Which I think is a suitable type of claims for her purpose. Her purpose is just to explain why people used to do something. And she's going to define why they used to and give a cause and effect relationship about why they used to. That kind of makes sense to me. If we looked at any of these um, paragraphs, like we did with the first two claims, we would see the types of discourse. She relies heavily in this essay on example, not much definition. So she says in the "They Were Sexy" claim, she starts giving an illustration, a compelling half gaze masked by lazy bluish veils of smoke, the courtship gesture, the implications of lighting someone's cigarette. They're all illustrations. The audience can close their eyes, they can see this happening, and these examples are being used to prove and to make the audience feel that they were, in fact, sexy. So that brings us to the point that we wanted to talk about most importantly in cigarettes is when you write and when you develop your claims, whether that be with examples or evidence or analysis, whether that be with your diction choices to establish your tone and attitude, whatever you're doing, you're always thinking in terms of what's going to move your audience to be influenced by what you have to say. And in Barbara Holland, in the Indefensive Essay, we're thinking emotional appeal. We're thinking that we want to get them to respond emotionally to what we have to say, and then we have them more maybe agreeable to our position because of it. And this essay, the cigarettes essay, is the best one to look at for this skill because Barbara Holland has set up a very difficult argument for herself. Everyone knows the problem with cigarette smoking, and yet she's trying to defend it. So this is what we call a very difficult argument. How is she going to win it? She's going to get there by responding to her audience's emotion, specifically emotions and examples that they could relate to. And so you're going to see a lot of illustrations and metaphors here that are familiar to the audience, and then the feeling of those comparisons are transferred over to cigarette smoking. And we see that from the beginning. It was fun, they tasted good, and they were sexy. So all of these first three claims really hit on some very basic human feelings. Pleasure with fun and taste. But taste is getting even more physical to this act of eating that is so regular to us. We eat multiple times a day. And this idea of desire and even image that's created to create desire. So these are very fundamental emotions that people experience, and she starts with these because she knows that she'll be able to influence them because they have felt all these same ways that she's explaining in the example, just not connected to cigarettes. They've understood the sensation of a good taste. They've understood sensual desire. They've understood having fun, and she's equating those experiences to cigarette smoke. So she's purposely choosing these appeals to influence her audience. We see this in many different places. I like one of my favorites is here when she says the tobacco offer was a gesture of peace as it was among American Indians. Now we can just look at this claim, which is a definition claim, as we said, and think about the more subtle emotional appeal she makes here. A very obvious emotional appeal in the first three, very subtle emotional appeal here. And she's trying to get her audience to soften their problematic view of cigarettes and accept some sort of understanding. So how's she doing it? She calls not only on their ability to know what it means and feels like to have fun and taste something good and have desire, but she also calls on guilt and makes the audience respond to guilt with this reference to the American Indians. So if you think about American Indians, you immediately think of a problem. You think of the fact that they once were inhabitants of North America, specifically the United States, and you know from history that when the settlers came and our country began developing more and more with these English settlers, that the American Indians were pushed into the margins of the land, of the culture, and to a certain degree, many of them died. So what she's playing on here is a number of things. The reference to American Indians somehow equates smoking and people who smoked with these people who have been um, mistreated, people who have suffered, people who have been ignored. And in doing so, she very subtly makes the audience feel guilty for judging or talking bad about people who have smoked or people who do smoke. Um, because the other people that smoke in this example, the American Indians, we've been so bad to, and we cannot speak badly against them now, or we'd be seen as kind of heartless or insensitive. So that's another emotional appeal, a very specific example that was chosen to make us respond emotionally. Because she could have just said the tobacco offer was a gesture of peace, period. One took out a cigarette, then offered a pack to another. She doesn't need this reference to the American Indians. She doesn't even talk about it anymore. But the very reference to it here creates this emotional appeal to guilt, which helps her start influencing her audience, helping them, okay, I could see, I'll soften my distaste for people who smoke because I'm feeling this sense of guilt. At the same time, I'm feeling this sense of pleasure and desire that's being pulled on in the other examples. So think about that when you choose examples in your own solution part of the essay. Now, we're not getting there yet, but when you do get there, when you're in the solution part, what examples are you going to choose, what definitions you're going to choose that specifically appeal to something your reader likes, enjoys, that will help maybe convince them a little bit better liking your topic. It's something good to think about throughout this whole process, even as you do the problem making. You'll have multiple weeks to continue to think about the best way to influence your audience and get them to believe you. So that's it for now. We'll return next week with a closer look at the next 3 Barbara Holland essays. We just have a few more videos this week to discuss your problem making draft and also preparing for your conference. So I will see you soon. Until then, enjoy these Barbara Holland essays. Bye.